There you go. Good morning, everyone. We want to start the meeting because we have a lot to cover today. So if you could please take a seat and hold on to your conversations for after the meeting, if that's okay. We just want to get going and make sure we get you in on time and out on time. Thank you so much. All right, so on behalf of CAR, I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome you to the March General Membership Meeting. Our program today is going to include a panel discussion on Is Smart Growth Smart? And try and say that 5 times fast. I don't know why they keep putting those names that try and trip me up, but anyway. We're gonna have 3 subject matter experts as well as, and we're also gonna have the induction of members into the CAR Professional Honor Society, and the announcement of the annual award recipients and the Hall of Fame honoree. So as I said, we have a big program today, so I want to get us started without further ado. All right, so safety is top of mind, and so this is the part where I do the flight attendant bit. I want to point it out to the closest exits in the room. You have 2 outside of this room right here on the side. We also have the 4 doors immediately outside this room leading out to the terrace. If you're on the terrace, you can take the walkway all the way around the building back to the front of the parking lot. And you can also come back the way you came in, which means through the pre-function area and the front doors. That's it. All right, to begin today's meeting, I welcome you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. States of America, to the republic, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, free and justice for all. Thank you. All right, so at this time also, I need to acknowledge the CAR antitrust statement. The statement ensures that we're encouraging discussions that promote all realtors and do not restrict competition among members or potential members. We work to foster a forum for an open discussion of diverse opinions without attempting in any way to discourage or sanction any business practices. The CAR antitrust statement is going to be acknowledged before every CAR meeting, and you have a full copy at the registration desk. It's also included in your handouts if you're on Zoom. So we're going to move to the approval of the minutes, and just want to make sure it is in your packet. Hopefully everybody read it word for word. This is from the February 8th General Membership Meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? And if so, please raise your hand or put a message in the Q&A in the Zoom. So scanning the room. All right, if not, they stand approved as distributed. Thanks. All right, before we go any further, I want to make sure that we express our gratefulness and our appreciation for the sponsors that made this event possible. First of all, the presenting sponsor is Embrace Home Loans. Supporting sponsors are Fulton Mortgage Company, Greenwood Home, and Southern Development. So at this time, where is he? I'd like to invite Hal. Is he out there talking to people? Oh, you're right here. Sorry. This is for seeing close. I can't see far. So Hal, come on in.
Thank you, Ann. Hey, good morning, everybody. Good to see you out on this nice, cold spring day. Hey, just a couple quick notes. Embrace and Hal Johnson. I think they gave out this flyer as part of your handouts, just to bring your attention to the fact that I'm an approved lender with Atlantic Builders in Charlottesville and with Craig Builders in Charlottesville. And also point out that Embrace Home Loans has an extended rate lock if you're building a new home up to 1 year. One other item that I want to bring up is a temporary rate buy down since rates have gone back up, as we've all noticed. Before, I know it may be odd to say this, but before you lower your list price on a house, if it's not moving, what you want to do is get your lender to tell you what a temporary rate buy down would cost. It's a much more efficient way to use funds. If a seller is going to lower their price, they could give a temporary enough money to buy a temporary rate buy down for the buyer. Much more efficient way to get a listing moving. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Hal. I got to lower that microphone again. So we really appreciate the professionalism, service, and support of our affiliates. And we just want to make sure that we have some tables out there with information from our sponsors. Please be sure to visit your tables, not if you're on Zoom, because you can't do that. But if you're here, make sure you stop by their table, talk to them, find out what they're doing and what's new and how they can benefit your business. Okay? All right, before we move into the next segment of the program, I'd like to acknowledge the elephant in the room. I want to talk quickly to mention last Friday's announcement from the National Association of Realtors. So hopefully that's not news to you. If you've been living under a rock for the past week, maybe it is. Or if, like one of my colleagues, if you're hiking all the way up to base camp of Everest, maybe she doesn't know. The rest of you should know. They have a proposed settlement to resolve the home seller class action lawsuits pending court approval. So it's a proposed settlement. I really encourage you to visit the websites that are shown here on the screen to learn more about the proposed settlement and the impact it's going to have on our industry. But know that CAR is going to be working diligently. This is one of those where it's like, we're not wondering here what we should be doing right now. We are doing, we are thinking, we're talking. We're going to work diligently to communicate the practice changes, the new rules, and the corresponding MLS system changes that are proposed to go into effect by mid-July 2024. But, right now it could still change. It's a proposed settlement. Things could still change. So until we know for sure what we have is a proposal. Okay. All right, so at this time, we're going to move straight into the Is Smart Growth Smart panel discussion. If you're not familiar with the term smart growth means a strategy to ensure cities remain dynamic, livable, and attractive places to live. But smart growth can also have some unintended consequences, such as increased gentrification, negative environmental impacts, and negative societal impacts. So at this time, I'd like to invite our subject matter expert to the stage. We got Charlie Armstrong, Vice President of Land Development with Southern Development Homes. Thank you, Charlie. Come on up. Michael Barnes. Michael Barnes is Planning Director for Albemarle County. Thank you for coming today. And the man who needs no introduction, Neil Williamson, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, who is going to be today's moderator. Now, during the panel discussion, the audience is going to be able to ask questions. If you're in person, locate the closest microphone to you. There's one here and one there. If you're on Zoom, go ahead and put it in the Q&A section. We have someone monitoring it, and the question is going to be asked live. So take it away.
Thank you. For those of you that follow me on Facebook, I've got to do one thing. Thank you. No seats available. I appreciate this discussion. Smart growth has been is a somewhat dated moniker. It seems like there's a new moniker every 2 years after the consultants have been to all of the big conferences. They have to come up with a new moniker to explain. So I find it to be a bit presumptuous and pejorative. It's hard to be against smart growth and who's opposed to streets that work. What are you in favor of? Streets that don't? But more recent iterations of the same theme include traditional neighborhood design, transit-oriented development, new urbanism, sustainable development, livable communities, walkable neighborhoods, complete streets, and streets that work. One of the big questions that I have, the starting question for our subject matter experts, who luckily I've known for over 20 years, it seems like, in different roles, is the definition of smart growth. And the EPA defines smart growth as an overall approach of development and conservation strategies that can help protect our health and natural environment and make our communities more attractive, economically stronger, socially diverse, and resilient to climate change. And everybody gets a chicken in every pot. There are other opinions of smart growth. Former Raleigh Mayor Tom Fetzer said, smart growth is a misleading name for an old policy, heavy-handed government control of the marketplace. Smart growth isn't a smart way to help homeowners, workers, commuters, or business people grapple with the challenges of a modern city. Well, those are two very different visions of smart growth. And I'm going to open it up starting with Mr. Barnes. How would you've been on the public side, you've been on the private side. How would you define smart growth?
Is the microphone on? Yeah. Well, first of all, welcome. It's really good to be in this room. I used to work for a couple of local developers, and so attended many sort of real estate conferences. A lot of those things out at Glenmore and other places. So it's good to be back in this group again. I've been here for about 2 months or actually getting ready to go on to the 3rd month as the director of planning for the county. Worked in a lot of different places, Neil, with VDOT, director of planning in Waynesboro, again with the private sector, laying out subdivisions and trying to get things entitled. I've started my career as an environmentalist. That was my first job, my degree, worked over the Eastern Shore doing environmental planning. And it's interesting because I think that was about the time that a lot of the smart growth terminology was coming up in Maryland. And it was a response to the fact that government is asked to, maintain roads, to maintain infrastructure. And I think on a dollar per dollar basis, the more dense a community is, the more fiscally easier it is to maintain that community. I mean, think about it. We live in a state where the state's responsible for paying for all the roads and maintaining, well, not paying for the roads, but maintaining them once they're built. And the more we sprawl, the more taxes have to be spent on fewer homes per lane mile, as opposed to a denser development, which is, again, more fiscally prudent, where you have that density, more people, more taxes. And it's interesting that you brought up Raleigh as one of the things. I saw a great slide 10 years ago where they were talking about a price per acre, and it was a graph. The more the value of the land was, the higher the bar chart was in this map of Raleigh. And it showed the downtown area as just this like pinnacle of tax generation. So there is a lot to be said from a fiscal standpoint for smart growth, which is essentially, to define that, is trying to put a way forward where communities are livable in a more dense format. Maybe it's a little more of a European format in some people's mind, but I think the antithesis is, being able to sprawl as much as you want, small half-acre, 2-acre lots, or even exurban sized lots, which are 5-10 acres, and people are spread far and wide. You have school buses having to travel farther to serve those kids, fire and rescue having to go farther and farther to serve those houses. So smart growth is many of the things that the EPA sort of alluded to in their definition, which is some of them are, I take your point, some social aspects to it, but I'd like to just come back to underline some of the fiscal components of what smart growth is.
Charlie, same question.
I don't know that I can add much to that, Neil. I think I'll go a slightly veering direction on it. And it's great to see all of you first, and happy to be up here speaking with you. I've been doing land development in Charlottesville for about 20 years, and I've watched a lot of things change, and I've watched a lot of things not change, particularly the problems that we face as a community with housing. That's been the same for 20 years. 20 years ago, we were talking about workforce housing, then it's affordable housing. The names changed, but the problem is the same. And so Michael's definition of smart growth is perfectly adequate and correct. And a lot of the benefits of smart growth are easy to see, environmental in particular. He and I share the same degree in environmental science. So we have that same perspective, and a lot of people appreciate the value of our environment and preserving our rural or sensitive spaces. But what we don't talk about is how we do the smart growth. That broad concept is so appealing that we don't talk about what it really costs and whether we're doing it right. And I hope I'm not stealing one of your future questions, Neil, but let's talk about Albemarle and Charlottesville in particular, because they're near and dear to all of our hearts. We want our cake and we want to eat it too. So we want to preserve the rural areas. We want to direct growth into the more urban spaces. And that's good, but then we also want to heavily regulate it and require the producers of that housing to provide things that make it very expensive, if not impossible to build, which causes a huge shortage in housing options here. So we talk about affordability as being one of the most important, and diversity of housing types and diversity of people living in those homes as one of the most important aspects of smart growth. But then we engineer it as a society so that it's actually not available to those people who need it by regulating, by adding cost to it, so it can't be produced in the ranges that we want it.
Well, since Charlie's gone ahead and jumped ahead to one of the last questions, I'll just throw the script to the side. Mr. Barnes, nationally, the National Association of Home Builders has created a chart that shows regulations represent about 25% of the cost of a new home. Anecdotally, we understand it's hard to find a finished development area lot in Albemarle County for less than $100,000. Do you believe smart growth regulations are too prescriptive? And does that decrease the number of lots available?
Well, 2 points there. I think first, the regulatory environment of what actually happens on a lot, or the difficulty to develop a lot from a builder's perspective based on the regulations or the speed of the bureaucracy's review, or those kind of things. Those are questions about how the actual stuff gets built. It's not really so much about the form or the location. I mean, the location is a policy, there's no doubt about it. And I think we're talking about the development area boundary. So, you know, you could expand the development area boundary and you'd still have the same problems that you're complaining about, which that's fair, right? So let's not try and confuse the two. Smart growth is a lot about, again, some of the things you're alluding to. It's about trying to protect some of the natural resources beyond the development area. I spoke to the fiscal components earlier, but the stuff that goes beyond, like protecting our drinking watershed, which is something that we need no matter how much we, develop. So that's important. I will grant you that the cost of a single family lot goes up because it's a supply question. And I think part of the answer of smart growth is increase in density, which is a change in land form that many people might or might not want. That scarcity of single family lots is an issue that needs to be dealt with from a policy standpoint. But, so much what happens with the, smart growth or the growth management policy in the county, it's a series of trade-offs. And I think that we need to be careful when we're having questions like this, that we don't sort of boil it down to just one variable, one side, you're taking away single family lots, and that's what the problem is. It's a multitude of factors. We live in a complex society. We're trying to balance many of the variables to create a community that we want to live in. And I think we do that very well. It's obviously a community that a lot of people want to be in. And luckily for you all, that means lots of people coming in to buy stuff. So I just, regulatory stuff aside, I think smart growth does do a good job of trying to protect the natural resources that we need to depend upon, helps with climate change issues, and can create a built form that is a pleasing built form. I think that's one of the things we're sort of talking around here, is that the regulatory environment, when it comes to building streets in certain ways to make them pleasing place for people, we don't always get that. There's a lot of competing regulatory stuff between the state, regulations on roads, but the aspiration's there, and I think it's a noble aspiration.
Charlie, your thoughts?
Again, Michael's exactly right. And he and I could sit up here and banter about this all day long. It's interesting that one of the things you brought up was the growth area in Albemarle, because that's not where my head was at when I was talking before. But Albemarle only only has a 5% area of the county set aside.
Less than
for-
5%.
Thank you, Neil. When you take out parks like Biscuit Run and other spaces that can't be built, it's far less than 5%, but nominally it's 5% of Albemarle County is the development area. And the other 95% is where the county wants essentially no building. It's not entirely no building, but as little as can be done. And so that's one conversation about whether 5% is the right amount. Many people think it's not enough. I don't know where I stand on that. I know where Neil stands. And the other really important thing that Michael said is this is a complex society we live in. These are trade-offs, and we need to acknowledge that as a society that when we want things, there's a cost, or there's a trade-off. I want sidewalks in my neighborhood. Not everybody does. I want trees in my neighborhood. And those things, there are costs associated with building sidewalks, whether the county builds them or whether a developer builds them. There are costs associated with making sure you're in a treed neighborhood. Trees need space that could otherwise be occupied by an apartment building or something like that. And there's no judgment here whether one is better than the other, but there is an effect of requiring one at the expense of the other.
All right, Charlie, next question's for you. From removing parking minimums to promoting multimodal transportation, many believe smart growth is anti-automobile and is opposed to the mobility provided by automobiles. Do you agree with that connotation, and how important is transit to making smart growth really work? And how is Central Virginia doing in that area? Get on the bus.
Wrong, very, and terrible. So, no, smart growth isn't anti-automobile at all. There are many people who are proponents of smart growth who are also anti-automobile, and they'd rather people walk or bike or take transit as their primary modes of transportation. That's fine. But smart growth makes owning an automobile more difficult, I would say, if you do it the right way, which is densely. You might need parking garages if you want to have automobiles, but the market can solve for that. So by removing parking minimums like Charlottesville has just done, which is fantastic, I think, you let the market decide whether parking is necessary. Parking is one of the most expensive things to produce as part of housing. Underground parking garages for high density housing, it's astronomical. I've heard recent quotes as much as $100,000 a space for really high density. The number used to be 30, 6, 7, 8 years ago, but that's through the roof now. So do we value that, or do we not value having a parking space? And the market should decide that, I think. Transit is a really important part of having smart growth, which implies having areas where people can live in denser housing. Without that, cars are forced to be part of the equation, and that means expensive parking spaces and traffic. Nobody likes traffic, but you need a pretty dense place to really effectively do transit well. You can't have buses that only have 2 people on them. You can't have a subway in any place even remotely the size of Charlottesville. But people still talk about it like we should have it here. So until we get bigger, if we get bigger, those things aren't realities. Well, sorry, buses are very much possible, but things like subways are not. So if you let housing be denser in a more urban area, then the bus system can be provided to support it. And I think that's a great solution, and also gives people the option to have cars or not.
Michael?
Well, thank you, Charlie. You made most of my points. We agree on a lot. And, I remember when, I was working at Virginia Land when you first started working in Southern Homes and started like that. I mean, I left the county initially. I worked for the county from 2000 to 2003. And I left in part because the idealism that was sometimes us planners can be accused of being too strongly that way and not enough towards pragmatism. I wanted to figure out how it got done, and I spent 5 years in the private sector. I understand a lot of the the pressures that are based on, how something gets developed and the cost. I remember it was $10,000 a space for structured parking back then. So it's interesting to look at that. Are we doing a good job? I'll probably take your first three words too. I don't know if Albemarle County has always done a good job. And again, we're talking about the trade-offs of many complex things. And I think there's been a lot of pressure not to do the density that we probably should have done on many of our developments. A lot of the NIMBYs and, what have you, prevented us from maybe getting to densities that might have more easily supported a transit system if it were in place today. Let's put it that way. But these things also cost money. And part of this thing has been sort of at times, maybe investments could have been made more strategically over the years. I think we've got a lot of catch up to do in our community to be able to hit a lot of the goals of what smart growth is. So I'll take your critique. Well, Neil, the smart growth is, has it been effectively done in this community? Could we do a better job? Yes. I look forward to your support in making that happen. Because I mean, the critique is easy, getting it done is hard. And I think I'll come back to, I mean, if you can not be an environmentalist, but you can be fiscally conservative and still see smart growth as a smart play. Because again, cost of public services, when you have that density, is cheaper on a per capita basis. So I think that's important. Are we anti-car? I think that was really the heart of your question. No, I don't think it's necessarily anti-car, but there is an acknowledgement that as things get denser, people in individual vehicles makes it harder to get around. That congestion is maybe in some respects where we need to be to sort of create the opportunity for transit and for people to use bike paths or what have you to get around the density.
Well, unfortunately, congestion breeds transit use. The idea of most transit, in my opinion, is a dumbbell. You have to have a lot of people in one place and a lot of people where a lot of people want to go in another place, and then transit works. And you need to have the idea of having a regular system that you don't have to wait an hour for a bus and then make 6 transfers. I think back to when Metro was founded, Metro Rail in Northern Virginia and DC. Does anybody know what the one thing was that made Metro work? The government stopped paying for parking. They started handing out fare cards, and literally overnight, the ridership skyrocketed. But that's an aside.
Actually, that's to the heart of the matter.
Yeah,
I mean, it's where we make our choices to spend our money.
right. Now, Charlie, I'm interested because you have been building in this community throughout what I call the neighborhood model era. For those that don't know, the neighborhood model was a 8 characteristics that Albemarle wanted to see in development, and rezonings were measured against. That's no longer the case. Those 8 things have been codified now and they're required. And it's not a model, it's the model, generally speaking. And it dovetails with the 10 key characteristics of smart growth. But in that time, have you seen how has the market responded to the neighborhood model in terms of product mix? And there are other things, of course, impacting the market, but where do you think Albemarle is right now on that smart growth curve?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I think that the market has accepted those tenets of the neighborhood model well. Those are things like, like I talked about, sidewalks, trees, and diversity of housing types, or even diversity of uses in a place. So the market is there, it's ready, and it's ready for more. My critique of the neighborhood model would be that it's now too rigid. Not every neighborhood should be a model neighborhood. There should be some variety of neighborhoods. But there is some provision for that in the code too. Where I think the rubber hits the road is that when these rezonings come before the supervisors, or I hope some of them are on the Zoom, We have these visions that are in our comprehensive plan of what we want and how many residents or homes we want in a given land area. And then it gets to the public hearing where it's a political decision. And that's when it gets hard. It's really easy for me to point a finger at planning commissioners and supervisors and say, you just need to follow the plan that we all approved as a community. But they've got people standing there yelling at them on that evening that they don't want this new housing next to them, even though for the last 20 years, the big plan that we all approved as a community has said that's exactly what we need and want. But that's a place where we could make a difference. That's a place where we could really do smart growth better, is by having some backbone when it's time to make the hard decisions. And that's on us too. We are those neighbors sometimes who have something proposed near us and we don't like change because we're people. But we need to get over that, both individually and politically. Our leaders need to lead and say, yep, that is what it says. It says that road should connect so that not everybody from this neighborhood needs to go out to 29 just to go back over to their school, which is in the next neighborhood. Instead, they should be able to connect right through on the shortcut. And the neighbors who are near that little connector road, who will eventually probably love it, need to get on board with the idea that that will be built. Same thing with density. Generally, I've been doing this a while. Generally, once a community is built and has established for 2 or 3 years, people love their new neighbors, whoever they are, however many of them there are. But when that piece of farmland or woods or vacant lot is about to turn into new neighbors, they don't love the idea. So our leaders need to understand that long-term vision and really stand up a little better and risk not getting elected next time sometimes to make that good decision when it's before them.
Mr. Barnes, anything to add to that?
Not a lot. Thank you. Thank you. No, seriously, I appreciate what you just said there. I would add, so when my first tour of duty at the county was, I think the neighborhood model had been either got adopted a week after I started or a week before. So I was right there at the ground floor. And I did the rezonings for the shops at Stonefield and the rezoning for Holloway Town Center. And we were trying, of course, Holloway Town Center hasn't built out, which, it's kind of interesting on the regulatory aspects. I learned a lot from that. But, and I won't speak to the political decisions. I think you artfully said that. But I do think there is stuff that staff can do to try and bring a little bit more certainty and clarity into the process. That will be a goal of mine. But because I think that part of building the neighborhood model, building smart growth or whatever it is really, it has to be a collaborative thing. I think when I first tour of duty, I heard something about we don't do economic development was kind of thing. And it struck me as kind of funny because if you don't do economic development, how do you find the people who are going to help build that community that you want? So I think there's a role for collaboration. I think that can help on some of that. And hopefully those successes breed more support when it comes to making those tough political decisions.
Well, and from the top 10 for smart growth, number 9, make development decisions predictable, fair, and cost effective. We're still working on that one.
I think though, Neil, I think it has gotten better. As somebody who was, back in the early 2000s, it was a little bit less defined and a little bit more difficult to get through a process.
I will agree with you as one who sat in the old small Board of Supervisors room when North Point, which we're seeing come out of the ground now, was approved in 2003. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud? There was a huge crowd in that room and it was rather combative. Being respectful of time, I wanted to make sure I open it up to you guys. If you have questions, please come forward to the microphone to ask. I have other ones that I can go through, but I wanted to make sure to give you a chance. Sharon?
I've lived both urban and rural, and I'm a big proponent of your lasagna plan that you can describe better than I can. But I would love to see how that fits into the smart growth and maybe what their comments are.
Sure. Just so folks know, the lasagna plan was the idea of rather than having one either being development or rural, you would have four. You would have urban, suburban, transitional, and rural. Just in the work sessions yesterday, lasagna was taken off the menu. Sorry, it was too easy. Charlie, do you want to speak to that with regard to whether you think that we should be re-examining the rural, the binary choice, or does the binary choice work?
So I think a easy place to focus is services. There's a current discussion at Albemarle about whether we should be kind of broadening the scope of what the small villages, hamlets we have in Albemarle can be. Right now, they can be nothing. You can't do commercial uses in, say, the crossroads of Whitehall, or the Batesville store is the only store that's ever allowed to exist there because it already exists, for example. Should there be a little bit more of that allowed, so that if you need a gallon of milk and you live out in the country, you can stop in at what used to be Profit. There was a town there, small, but a town, instead of having to go, again, I'll say out to 29 because it invokes a great vision in everybody's head. And can you get your car worked on close to home if you live out in the country? So though that's not quite lasagna, that's just one of the layers there. That's one that's currently being discussed, and it's an intriguing thing to think about. Can we do more in our rural areas in the tight little kind of crossroads communities without changing the character of the bigger rural areas? And Michael may have thoughts on that, and maybe he has some professional plans or goals on that. I don't know, but I'm interested to hear and see.
Michael, you were at the work session yesterday. Do you want to expound on limited commercial uses in the rural area as the opportunity in the comp plan?
Well, it's interesting because, first of all, I'm not completely familiar with your lasagna recipe. So I don't know if I can speak to that directly. Definitely with this comprehensive plan effort that we're doing right now, there was a big push before I got there to make sure we had a chapter for the rural areas. And I think I understand that as making sure we wanted to call out that that's a very important resource that's important for the community to protect. So to me, I think that what we need to be is clear in the goals that I'm hearing, which is to sort of protect the natural historic resources out there, to promote the agricultural and silvicultural uses. The tough part is the commercial stuff. Some of it's the legacy zoning, zoning that existed before the neighborhood model, and really before the growth management policy was adopted back in the 80s. I think we recognize that poses a problem for us. We can't extend water and sewer to existing commercial uses, and we're trying to wrestle with that. And those things are usually places well, Shadwell or 250 West. And then the other aspect of these crossroads communities, I used to be a proud resident of downtown Esmont, lived there for 9 years, moved back to the city for all the amenities that my boys would be able to enjoy that they didn't have out in the rural area. I appreciate the idea of trying to save a couple of those old stores in Esmont. If you've been down there, Ms. Purvis has been trying to save the old Purvis store, and unfortunately that doesn't seem like that's going too well. Half the store is gone, but there's the post office was there, the old bank, used, and there's another store beside that. The question is what will go into those things economically? Are we going to be able to get a doctor's office out there? Would a true country store pop up in something like that? Could it be a restaurant? Are we looking for like Sonoma? I think that a lot of people, you have a nice little farm to table restaurant out in the countryside. I'm not quite sure that's what we're talking about when we're talking about going to get a thing of milk. So I'm really confused myself on what those rural uses need to be, and those things. What will the market adopt? I'm also very worried about my staff time doing small area plans where the planners go out and sort of predict what's going to happen in the community with the citizens out there when we don't have the potential owners who might come and start a business there. So maybe we do it the other way around, where we have an opportunity, somebody wants to move forward, and we let the community see if that can happen. I think those are ways we might be able to, you know, bring some of those uses out to the rural area. But there is a strong part of our community that wants to maintain that status quo and that hard line. So these are the picket fences. These are the places we have to, that's why I get paid the big money to do that.
The, I regret that we're not gonna be able to get to all the questions that we've got in the floor and online. But I would ask if you would Percy, go ahead. You're at the microphone.
Percy Montague, and I have done a fair amount of development in Albemarle County over the years, none of it recently. A process that should be collaborative. If I had to pick a name to describe the process that preceded you, it would be adversarial. And that's unfortunate, and I hope that you're bringing a different feel to the process. It sounds like it this morning, and I hope that's accurate. I'd also like to comment, a couple of years ago, I did the marketing for the Crossroads, the shops at Crossroads down in, for those of you who aren't familiar with Crossroads, it's down on 29. It's about 10 miles from Charlottesville. It's incredible what the previous owner did there. He built a sewage treatment plant. He put in a water system. He developed 30,000 square feet of retail and office use. There's a great country store that was part of the reason that that site has been commercial for several hundred years. But now there's also a great restaurant. Those of you who are familiar with Dr. Ho's, the University of Virginia Medical Center has a facility there. Their medical offices, their therapists. It's really a great facility for that community. And I would love to see you all embrace that model and make it work other places. Thank you.
I'm going to leave that as a comment because I'm running right up on time. But I want to say that there has been a shift in thinking in Albemarle County and also in the city to a great degree, where there is a little more collaboration. Everything's always on a spectrum. It's not nearly where Neil wants it, but that's probably a good thing. But I want to take a moment to have you guys thank our panelists today for sharing their knowledge. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Let's give them another round of applause. This was great. Yes, and as somebody who lives in Ivy, I would love to see something show up over there. That's like the no man's land between Crozet and Charlottesville. So yeah, I'm all in. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and at this time we want to pay tribute to the hardworking group of local realtors who are dedicated to the real estate profession and our leaders in the realtor community through the Professional Honor Society. So this is the party time of the program. 2023 marks the 28th consecutive year in the Car Honor Society for 6 car members. It's also the first year for 2 members. So here to announce the 2023 inductees in the Car Professional Honor Society is past president Teely Jennifer. Come on up, Teely.
Good morning, everyone. So proud to see you all here, and this is a really great time to celebrate those volunteers. My years of volunteering here have brought me many relationships that I cherish, and it's a great way to know some great realtors. So, it's my honor to be here. Whether you are new to the real estate profession or have been for years, the Professional Honor Society is a great accolade to achieve every year. As Ann said, the Car Professional Honor Society began in 1996. Today, we recognize 54 individuals for their standards of excellence in 2023. What does it take to be part of the Professional Honor Society? It takes attendance to these meetings. And very easy to do. They're very good. Participation in other real estate educational activities such as classes, designations, certifications, and leadership academies. And the Latte and Learns, those are also part of them, and they're also very informative. Leading or volunteering on a local, state, or national committee or community activity. And success in either your production of sales or ability to serving as a managing broker. Now, the sales part of it, you don't have to have a lot. So just be out there volunteering too. I know you need the money though, but when you put all that criteria together, the outcome is well-rounded, professional, committed to raising the bar for the industry and serving as a role model in the community. To be respectful of time, honorees will be shown on the screen, and I will only read the names of members who have achieved a 5, 10, and 25-year milestone. But I'm going off script a little at that time. I think they need to have a little more accolades. I do request that each honoree on the screen, please stand at your seat to be recognized as a group. While members stand to be recognized, I will share some fun facts about the Professional Honor Society. So if you can wait until I get my fun facts and we can all clap together for the people, that would be great. The first group has earned the Professional Honor Society designation between 1 and 4 years. And like Ann said, Ivy's out there on the mountains and she got her first year, which is wonderful. And Catherine Richmond. I'm going to honor those two because they got into the group. Members, please, please stand. You could have stood so that we can watch you all the time. Okay, here's a little fact. Did you know the total amount of points a member must obtain their Professional Honor Society is 75 points. Now, you can get that easy. It sounds like a lot, but you could just by coming to project teams, meetings and this, it adds up really fast. Next, I would like to congratulate the following 2 members who have reached a 5-year milestone. Please stand. Okay, stand back up, girls. Kristen Sarakti and Sarah Mansu. The next group of esteemed honorees have been in the program for 6 to 9 years. Please stand and be recognized. That's a big group. Uh-oh, I went one too many pages. Oh, don't get this script mixed up. Did you know the Professional Honor Society evolved from an award called Top Producers? And I really didn't know that, but Debbie Cash just told me that that's how she started. So glad we're changing it to the Honor Society because top producers just make us all look like we're money hungry. So anyway, while production is essential to maintain a career, it shouldn't be the only area to focus on. Therefore, association involvement, professional development, and volunteer leadership were added to the criteria of the top producer. Now, the next honor is the 10-year award, and that's our own president, Ann Burrows. Next, I would like to recognize members who have achieved 11 to 14 honorable years. And there I am. And I'll tell you right now that I won't make the 28 years. That's another 14 and I don't think they're going to be there. I hope to be retired by then. Thank you. I'm privileged to recognize the following members who have achieved 16 to 19 years. If you could please stand. I was thinking maybe the milestone would be 20 years, but they've jumped it to 25 years. And I didn't know which pin. I have a 5 and a 10-year pin, and I decided RPAC was the best pin to wear. Did you know the latest or largest class of Professional Honor Society honorees was in 2005 with 78 members? I do remember that. We have our sights set on achieving many great accomplishments in 2024. Let's make one of those accomplishments a record that surpasses 78 Professional Honor Society members. I'm sure any of the individuals listed on the screen today for the Professional Honor Society would be willing to help you prepare to achieve this worthy accolade. Go on, get the application down and have it with you, because you'll be amazed what you really do during the year that you forget at the end of the year when you get the application out and go, oh, did I do that? Luckily, T. Lee is very organized and I have them all in files. Next, the following honorees have achieved 21 to 24 years of professional excellence. Another group of great women and men. I'm sure glad you guys have this screen here, because I'm thinking, how do they know if they don't have their year down? How do they know to get up? All right, next, I would like the next two honorees stand as we celebrate their 25-year milestone in this profession. Sorry. Well, we can congratulate Pat at another time. Our final group has been in the Professional Honor Society program for 26 to 28 years, and I think almost all of them are 28 years. Arlene and I discussed this the other night because I wanted to make sure. I just am amazed at the dedication of you guys for 28 years. That's amazing. And I think you all should have your name read and stand up. Kim Armstrong, Reeves Bailey, Tim Carson, Anita Dunbar, Percy Montague, Trish Owens, Pat Whithelm, and Arlene Knobs. And Pat didn't come today because she knew I was doing the hosting, and she said she had an important board meeting. So anyway, thank you for the honor of presenting you all with your awards, and keep up the volunteers and new ones start in.
Thank you so much, T. Lee. I appreciate it. And yes, I want to let you know that, you know, I've been in it for 10 years because I've been a realtor for 10 years. So, you know, I got involved with it as soon as I became a realtor. So I think that everybody in this room should take a look at the application. You'll find out that if you're in this room, you're likely doing all the things that would qualify you for the Professional Honor Society. So yes, let's try and beat the record next year. So, you know, that would be kind of my recommendation for all of you. All right, so I want to go ahead and move on to the annual awards presentation, which is going to be a lot of fun. So CAR is a well-respected program to honor members who contribute to the local industry in a way that enhances professional practice and boosts the reputation for all. The first award category is the Sales Associate of the Year. Being a realtor who is a top sales producer and is active in our association and community, is a challenge in its own right. But the Car Sales Associate of the Year also continues to improve their skills by engaging in continuing education courses and the achievement of professional designation. So before we announce the recipient, we're going to watch a video. Now, I wanted to make a note for those of you on Zoom. We've had the Zoom gods and devils have kind of gotten into the machine, and you can see the video, but the sound isn't coming through or is coming through very faintly. So if you're good at reading lips, you'll be able to read it all. But otherwise, you're just gonna have to just, you know, hear it. You'll figure it out by the end. So, all right, let's watch the video. I'm saying, feel free to say a few words.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know I'd be shaking or crying, but I don't, I'd like to thank the Academy for this Oscar. No, thank you very much. Thank you to my managing broker and to Michael and for my amazing husband for being such a great support. I don't think there's any time like right now that we should educate, collaborate and advocate for ourselves because we are valuable as realtors. So anyway, thank you.
Congratulations again, Caitlin. All right. Let's do the next award is the Realtor Ethics in Action. This award recognizes a realtor who is sought out by other realtors who are seeking advice and counsel on questions concerning the code of ethics and professional standards. Let's watch the video before we announce the recipient. Again, those on Zoom, read lips.
No, not really. Thank you. I just, I don't always know the answers, but I definitely will do my very best to find them out and to research them and to not cut corners and to not solve for the easy, quick answer. So I have to thank Montague Miller for giving me like my background in that, and Percy and Carol and Anita and Pat and Barbara for teaching me that it might take a little extra time, might take a little extra work, but always find out the right answer and then try to help other people come to the same information if they're not always sure of it themselves. So thank you guys.
Congratulations. All right, so the next award is the Realtor of the Year Award. This accolade is given to a realtor that exhibits faithfulness to the principles of organized real estate and to the rules and regulations of CAR and the NAR Code of Ethics. Additionally, the nominee should exhibit efforts to encourage good real estate practices and image among other real estate professionals and the public. So let's go ahead and watch the video for this one. All right, go ahead.
I'll say a few quick things. Yeah, thank you so much to everyone. I think our community here is just incredible. We have something that's very special when you travel around and you get to see some of the other associations. I know we're going to weather the storm that's in front of us. I'm excited for what's going to happen. I know the people in this room are committed to excellence and to real estate and to our clients. And thank you guys so much for recognizing me. I appreciate it. Thank you to my broker. Thank you to Sasha and Virgil and our team. Folks at Montague Miller. I think about Barbara McMurray, my first class with her saying to stay out of realtor jail. And I've just always tried to keep that in the front of my mind. So thank you guys.
Aren't you guys excited to know that he's taking over next year for me? I know I am, but I don't know if you are, but I am. That's a good thing. Anyway, the next award is the Car Good Neighbor Award that honors a Realtor member for significant time and interest that they have dedicated to a local nonprofit or charitable organization. The award includes recognition at this event, as well as a press release and a $1,000 donation to the organization for which their work is being recognized. So let's go ahead and watch the video and we'll talk. There you go. Right, go ahead.
Thank you, guys. I think it's super important as we're all really focused inward and as we should be as an industry with everything that's going around. I think we need to realize there's so many people in need in our community and there's so much time that we really do have that we can give back. So I really want to challenge you this year. Take time. What do you really, and what do you love? What are you involved in? What do you need to be more involved in? And give time, because you're going to spend a lot less time worrying about anything that may be happening in your world and seeing just how much need there is out there. So as an association, let's just do more that for this community that we love. Thanks.
That's right. Yes, that's a trick ramp. I love the fact that we haven't been able to hear the end of any of those videos because we're all so excited about the awards that we just start clapping before even, the last person speaks. So sorry for the people who recorded their statement at the end of the video because nobody heard you. But however, because of the, as I said, we had some issues with the Zoom. The fact is, all those videos are going to be posted on the YouTube page, on the CAR YouTube page, and they'll be there today. You can go ahead and watch the entire thing as many times as you'd like. So, all right, at this time, I'd like to hand the meeting over to past President Pam Dempt, who is the chair of the Past President Council, to recognize a very special CAR Hall of Fame recipient.
Thank you, Anne. As some of you may know, the very last responsibility for those who volunteer for CAR leadership is to chair the Past President's Council. And our meetings typically consist of us reminiscing about the good old days when we were president, as well as they provide us the opportunity to share our perspectives and opinions about what is happening in the real estate industry today and how it can impact our local association. It's one of my very favorite groups that I have ever chaired. It's an amazing group with knowledge and it's just a wonderful opportunity. And one of my favorite things is we're tasked to evaluate and perhaps add an illustrious member to the CAR Hall of Fame. The CAR Hall of Fame honors realtors who have made significant, outstanding, and exceptional contributions to the local real estate profession. Today, we honor a member who served our association as a realtor for 43 years. Before we announce the newest honoree, please watch and hear what some members had to say about him in remembrance. To help celebrate this well-deserved award, please help me welcome Caroline McLean, his wife, Wilson McLean, his son, and Jim Faulkner, his business partner, to the stage to accept Stephen's award on his behalf. Right.
This is hard, but thank you very much to Carr. And as you all know, Steve was passionate about this community. He, 2 weeks before his death, he turned to me and he said, I really loved what I did. And he, as my son Wilson reminded me, he loved connecting people with land and houses, whether it was their first single ranch, small house, or an estate. He loved the connection. And carry on, do well, enjoy it. It's a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice, but I'm really proud of him.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning to honor Stephen. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be able to award this. And at this time, our annual awards program has concluded, and I'll hand the meeting back to Ann. As we all have here.
Oh, now I gotta talk. Everybody, deep breath. This was amazing. Thank you. Whew. I gotta find myself here. Okay. For all the honorees, please, both for the Honor Society and for all of the year awards, please stay after the meeting as our photographer is going to be taking pictures of everyone. So don't rush out the door, all the exits that I mentioned earlier. Don't go. You know, maybe on the, you can go out on the patio, but that's about it. Don't be taking the walkways. All right, we're almost done. So as a reminder, I wanted to make sure that you know we're accepting application for the 2024-2025 Pat Jensen Leadership Academy. The Academy, which was founded in 2017, I was part of the first class, best class. No, I'm just kidding. That's something we do at VAR, like the VAR, you know, there's like a lot of competition, but it was amazing to be part of the inaugural class. It was an incredible experience. It's intended to foster knowledge and encourage further movement of volunteers into additional leadership role. Yeah, it worked. So those of you who didn't have the pleasure of knowing the incredible Carr past president, Pat Jensen, she was a tremendous realtor, a broker, association president, leader, realtor, political action committee advocate, and so much more. And Donna will tell you she was like the best roommate. I'm a pale second. This year's class will be spearheaded by Carr past president Anthony McGee and past Carr board member Rachel Burns. So thank you again for taking the mantle and leading the group. So consider applying for the GREAT program. The application deadline is May 31st. So, you know, it's on the website. Please go ahead and take a look and make sure to ask any of us who've been part of it about, you know, if you have any questions about what it's like to be part of the group. So, all right, to continue the good feelings this morning, we would like to share our most recent Realtor in the Community commercial, which is on the Carr.com website, on the Carr social media channels, and it's included in the current streaming and TV local media campaigns. So we've got, you know, should we go ahead? Are we watching it?
The Charlottesville
Yes, there is.
Association of Realtors believes in more than just buying dream homes. We're passionate about building and supporting communities. Realtors dedicate their time.
Isn't it great? I mean, it is really nice to kind of, you know, talk about the things that we do besides doing our jobs. And this is, you know, there's a few people in there that probably need to apply for the Good Neighbor Award next year. They're in there. So I'm also pleased to announce that the value of the realtor and the fair housing advocate commercials have been shared in 26,500 households in the greater Charlottesville area. in the last 6 months. So we're getting out there and we're putting the CAR message out there, talking about the value of realtors. And I can't think of a better time for us to be doing this right now. It's a great use of the resources that we have as an association. So please share these important messages from the CAR YouTube channel to your own social media channels and business websites. So you can go to the YouTube channel and take the link and post it and, share it with, put it on all your social. So, make sure that, because that will increase the reach of all of that. And it's a message that can't be said enough. All right, so to conclude this morning's meeting, I'd like to welcome the following new Realtor members, the brave new class of Realtors who just decided to jump in. Woohoo! Thank you again for everyone for joining. I'm sorry, no, I'm not done. Then I'd like to welcome new affiliates, the 3 new affiliates from Civil Weekly, BC Harrop, and Albemarle Magazine. So thank you again. We love, as I mentioned earlier, affiliates really help round out the experience that we have here and the ability for us to connect with people who are part of our industry. And we all help each other, and it's a great resource. You can go, the CAR website has a list of all the affiliates. And if you're working with people that you think would benefit from being part of CAR because they're able to come to the meetings, meet other realtors, please let them know about the affiliate program. There's a lot of great opportunities there for them to connect and network. All right, so thank you again, everyone, for joining us for today's meeting. I hope you had fun. I hope you had some good breakfast, and have a great day. Meeting adjourned.